Good morning. We're going to make bread today, especially we're going to make some date rolls. So let's start with our water. This is 4 cups of nice warm water. Now we're adding a couple more, approximately. Now if I had potato water, I'd use that partly because that's so good. Now let's add our honey and oil. I like to pour the oil in because then it makes the honey come out easy. So we'll have a 1/2 cup of oil and 1/2 cup of honey. And these don't have to be exactly. I like to use honey in my bread. It makes it nice and soft, a nice soft bread. So let's come on up here to the 1 cup line. And if you get a little bit more, since we're making date rolls, it's okay if it's a little bit sweeter. Okay, that's good. Now we'll put this in. Notice how nicely, when you put the oil in first, how that honey comes out and it's not quite so sticky. Our next ingredient is salt. You can use whatever kind of salt you want. I just happen to have some of this Himalayan salt on hand. And we'll put 1 tablespoon of salt in. Next, I like to put a little ascorbic acid. This just helps when you're making your homemade bread. This helps the cell walls to hold strongly and not break apart because you want your bread to rise nicely. So we're just going to put a little of this in. 1/4 teaspoon ascorbic acid. That's vitamin C. There we go. Now it's time to put in the wheat. This wheat is freshly ground, and we're going to put in 10 cups to start with. 1. I like to grind my wheat fresh. It's so good that way. 2. 3. 10. I get my wheat at our little health store and grind it fresh, and there's lots of different kinds. Get it kind of started here. Now I'm going to get it all mixed in, and then I'll be adding a little bit more stuff here. Good. Now we're going to add a little gluten flour. This is not exactly essential, but depending on the wheat that you got, maybe it was grown in Montana, maybe it was grown in Idaho, but we're going to put a 1/2 cup of gluten flour in. This just also helps with elasticity. If the wheat that you have has a high protein content, then you might not need it. For years I didn't add any gluten flour to my bread. Now we'll mix this in. Now we're going to add the yeast, our essential ingredient for the bread to rise. 3 tablespoons. 1, 2, 3. So now I'm going to add a cup of regular oats. You don't have to do things like this, but I like to add just a little of this. Now I'm going to add enough wheat so that there's a nice ball forming, and basically I look inside here and I see when it's coming all together, it's cleaning the sides of the bowl. So we'll just be adding several cups until we feel like we've got enough wheat added. That was 11 cup, 12, 14. Starting to clean the bowl, not totally, but you can see it's starting to clean the sides of the bowl down there. You can see it's starting to ball up together. form. I'm going to let this go for about 6 minutes, so I'll set my timer and we'll see if it has all come together really nicely. Oh boy, that looks nice. So while this was mixing up, I got busy and chopped some nuts. Let's test this now and see if it has a good stretch test. I just like to see that the gluten is really nicely developed. So I just get my hands a little bit wet and grab a little piece of dough from here. And that way they don't stick to my hands. Just form it in a little ball. And now let's just see, when I kind of start pulling it apart, is it going to hold together or is it going to break? So far it is holding quite, oh, there's a little break. Why don't I give it one more minute? Let's just see if it'll hold a little bit better. One more stretch test here, just see how it is. But it does look like it's going to be a little bit better than last time. Whoops, turn this off. Okay, let's see how it holds this time. I think I'm just going to send it around a couple more times and then we're going to put it out on the table. Now we're going to turn the oven on. I'm turning it on to warm because I'd like it to be between 150 and 175 degrees. It's going to be my proofing oven, and as soon as we get them all formed, then we'll put them in there to rise for 20-30 minutes. So now it's time to take the bread out, put a little olive oil here on my countertop surface, and we'll get the bread out. Beautiful. Oh, I love that dough. There's something that feels so good when you're working it, and that is freshly made dough. Baking bread is one of my favorite things to do. I love the fragrance in the house. So, today we're going to be mainly making special rolls, but I'll make one loaf of bread first. If you have a dough cutter, this is so nice. So we'll make one loaf. This can make 6 nice small loaves. So we're going to make one loaf, and then we're going to get busy on our... Okay, we're going to form it nicely. Put it in our little pan here. We'll let that one set to rise, and now let's take this big mass here and work on getting it ready for our cinnamon rolls. Okay. Now we'll roll it out. I made the spread for our rolls last night. Here it is in this jar. You can put any dried fruits in, and it's very easy to make them. You just put your dried fruits, however many you want. Supposing you were going to make this size batch, I had almost 4 cups of dried dates, and then I added just a little bit of dried apricots. But you can put any dried fruits that you want, and you can make it using water. I used pineapple juice. So to the approximately 4 cups of dried fruit, I brought a couple cups of pineapple juice to a boil and put the dates and the apricots in, and let them boil a little bit and then simmer maybe 10 minutes or so. Then I just blended them up and I have a nice fruit spread. Okay, so this looks like it's about ready to cover. Okay. So now we'll take our fruit spread and put it on the dough. So this is actually a nice healthy treat. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to spread this to this edge, but I'm going to leave a little margin on the side over there. And you will see why in just a little bit. There's a little piece of apricot that didn't get blended. Get it right out to the edge over here. And now you can put on top of this anything that you like. Today I've decided to use some pecan pieces. So let's just sprinkle pecan over it. Another one of my favorites is walnuts. They're really good on homemade rolls. Okay, now if you like raisins, how about some raisins? And have some nice unsweetened coconut. You can kind of sprinkle it on sort of like snowflakes. I like to put a little bit of cinnamon or coriander, something like that. Whoops, that was not just a little sprinkle on that end. Okay, now we're going to start rolling, and you will see why we left this little border over there. Just start rolling. Since we have left a little edge, and sometimes I go a little bit closer, this is going to seal easily. Okay, now the fun part. Just have a bit of dental floss that you use in the kitchen, and the end pieces that I'm going to just cut them off here and stick them in any pan, and then we'll fill one of these up with a nice bunch. Don't you love the way this cuts it? So we'll put our first date roll right in the middle. You can make these as thick or as small as you want. If you want to just make them on a great big cookie sheet, you can do it that way too. This cuts it so nicely. There we have one pan filled, and we're going to get another pan ready to fill. So the oven is nice temperature, maybe 160 or so. So we'll put this in and let it bake. Well, first we're going to let it rise. So we've got it at a nice temperature. Now I'm going to set my timer. I'm going to look at it in, let's say, 25 minutes, and we'll check it then and see how it's risen, if it needs more time or if it's just enough. So now it's all in this nice proof oven, ready to rise. Let's check it and see if it's risen enough. Turn the light on. Oh wow, look at that. Oh my, oh my. We are going to turn the oven up now. It's risen plenty. We're going to turn the oven to 350. So here we go. 350. And now we're going to set the timer for, let's set it for 25 minutes again. When they're rolls, they might rise faster than when it's loaves. So let's check it at 25 minutes and see if it's done. Yep, timer says time to check it. Let's check and see how it's come along. Okay, they need to go a little bit longer, but this little guy at the very back, I think he needs to come out. Yeah. Yeah, we'll let it go just a little bit longer. Okay, let's check it again. Oh, that looks nice and golden brown, doesn't it? Yeah, we'll take this one out. Nice on the bottom too. We don't want to get it burnt, that's for sure. Looks like that one's a little bit extra done. And I think this one can come out. I'm going to let's see. That sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Sounds done. Woo. Let me knock on this one. Yeah, that sounds pretty much done. So I think we're going to call it all done. Now, if your bread isn't quite sounding like it's done or nicely browned, then you need to leave it in a little bit longer. But this looks like it's ready to come out.
Now, what does knocking on that do? What does that say?
If it has a nice hollow sound, then it should be done. Okay. And we want to have a little glaze on our bread. So we can use frozen orange juice. Today we're going to use some orange peach mango. Doesn't that sound kind of good? I'll either use a spoon or a spreader. Looks like it's coming out nicely. Okay, so we can spread some glaze on it. I like frozen orange juice for my glaze, or some nice combination. And I like to put it on when it's hot, because then it kind of melts in and it's going to be nice and pretty. We're going to take some of these rolls as a gift today, but I want them to get thoroughly cooled if possible so that they aren't going to sweat when I have them wrapped. Our bread is all out of the oven now, and we put our glaze on the rolls, and now we'll put just a little bit of olive oil on the last two loaves, and we're going to let this cool, and then we'll be ready to take one of these as a gift this afternoon. Merry Christmas to you all too.